My family wants my golden child sister to wear white to my wedding. I'm going to get back at them. I'm on my vacation and writing this long story. Typing it out feels good, and my husband is more excited about this than the drinks at the resort. Anyway, I'm not going to use this because I don't have a Reddit account, and my husband, who is crazy about Reddit, told me he doesn't want this to be linked to his hair. He said that since it was about his family, he should be the one to post the story, which is why the Reddit guy isn't writing this. He is looking over my shoulder to help, though. Since I'm not a professional, I can't say for sure if this works or not, but please don't post it anywhere else. So I think it's important to start by giving some background to show how this behavior got to this point, and why we responded the way we did. I'm sorry it's so long to read. For as long as I can remember, my parents loved my sister more than I do. I don't mean in a sneaky way either. If my sister said something bad about me, they would believe her and punish me. If I said I blamed her, they wouldn't believe me. They would still give her a lighter sentence, and try to find a way to scold me at the same time, even if there was clear evidence. She had to be able to choose the flavor of my birthday cake. Hers didn't, and my parents always said they didn't know I didn't like that kind of cake. They always got her a little more than I did. We went to the place she wanted, even though it was my event. My sister was spoilt as a child, and didn't like me, she only hit me. But at first she didn't think much about me. But when we were young teens, things got really bad. I don't know what caused her to lose her friends, but her behavior got worse. Have her friends moved? Did they leave her because she was mean? I don't know, because we were never close, and my parents loved bragging about how smart she was, but they never brought up any problems. On the other hand, they loved to tease me about any flaws I had all the time. Since we went to the same school, I saw that she wasn't hanging out with anyone else. That's how I knew she didn't have any. She didn't have any friends anyway. Yes, I did. I used to be pretty well known. When my sister realized that, I went from being someone she occasionally hit to someone she always had to get back at. She began to blame me for more things. I blamed my friends for more things. My parents wouldn't let me hang out with anyone, giving reasons like your sister says they're not good people, or why are you trying to leave us? Why can't you spend time with your family like your sister does? Extended family kept me from being completely alone. Most of my family lived in the same town, and even though we were different ages, I got along with my cousins. At one event, they asked me to come to something, but I can't remember what it was. I told them I couldn't go, which made them sad. When I was a kid, and didn't have any filters on, I told people why I couldn't have friends because my sister didn't have any. That must have reached the adults, because they broke up my parents. Later, I got in trouble for lying and was told I couldn't go anywhere for a month. After that, though, they gave me some room to move, so it was worth it. My sister also changed schools. I guess the shame of her extended family knowing that she was on a bad social level made her demand that things be changed. They agreed right away, even though it cost them more because the school was farther away. She made friends at her new school, though. But she never went back to ignoring me most of the time like she did before. I guess she never let me go because she knew how badly she could hurt me, and was mad that I told her family she didn't have any friends. Things were still bad in my life. My parents thought it was just light fun when her friends would come over and pick on me. I never had friends over because my parents were bad hosts, or my sister would say they stole something and they would believe her. I did get close to my cousins, though, because my parents would never do that to family. Then I met my first boyfriend. My parents made me bring him home, even though I didn't want to. At one point we were apart, and he came to find me to tell me that my sister was making out with him. He meant that she came over wearing very little and beating her eyebrows really hard while telling him how bad I was and how good she was. He got mad and ran to find me. My sister told my parents a different story, though. She said that my boyfriend had tried to flirt with her instead, but she said no because how could she do that to me? You can guess who my parents believed. Even though my boyfriend wasn't perfect, I believed him right away for some reason. But keep in mind that I was a teenager at the time, and was being treated badly because of no fault of my own. I felt angry and sour, and I hated my sister just as much as she hated me. Now that we've cleared that up, let's talk about looks. They weren't important, so I hadn't brought them up yet. My parents were and still are overweight. To show they loved you through food, like buying treats, giving you more food, etc., my sister was and still is overweight. I was, but I am not. In fact, I've always been pretty skinny, because I often didn't get treats or snacks as a punishment. It's clear that weight doesn't matter. Personality is what. But my sister was already rude and spoilt back then. She was bad at everything, even flirting, because she never learned to work for anything, because my parents would always give her what she wanted. Plus, she didn't look like a hot model. Even when I was a shy kid, I didn't think my boyfriend would try to cheat on me with her. Anyway, my parents told me I couldn't date such a bad boy. It was hard for me to keep going in secret, and the couple broke up. I did get another one, but my sister accused him of flirting with her again when he turned her down. Once more, my parents believed her. I tried to tell them that this kept happening, but they thought that meant I couldn't make good decisions and kept getting bad boyfriends. The relationship fell apart again because of the Romeo and Juliet thing. In high school, people called me a slut because I didn't mind making out with boys or anything, but I didn't want to be in a relationship. Thank goodness it never reached my sister or dad. During this whole time, my sister did bring home one boyfriend. He was praised, and my parents told me over and over again how great he was and why I couldn't find someone like my sister did. Until he stopped showing up, at which point he turned out to be a liar who lied to my sister. Well, whatever. And the unfair handling kept going at this point. She had better rules about curfews and more spending money than I did. She could go anywhere at any time, but I couldn't. My parents would say it's because she's older if I told them. But I still wasn't treated the same way she was when I got to that age. When I remind them of it, they either say they never said that, or say it was because they couldn't trust me like she could, using the charges my sister made against my boyfriend and friends as proof of how bad I am at making decisions. Over time, my sister has reached the end goal. She got into a college, but it wasn't a very good one, and she didn't have any money or scholarships. Finally, I only knew about her accomplishments, so I don't know which schools she even applied to. This means I can't say how badly she was turned down. I know she got bad grades because we would celebrate every time she got a B. When I got good grades, my parents wouldn't let me party, saying, since I always got those, what was the point? My parents told her they'd pay for everything and made a big deal out of it. Even though I was glad she was leaving, it didn't make my life any better. Her room would always be empty when she got home every other weekend, and she would always come up with new ways to make my life awful. That kind of thing. My curfews were still tight. My mom finally came to talk to me about my upcoming graduation. My sister and I are only a year apart in age. She told me they couldn't pay for my college because they were paying for my sister's. So I should get a job as soon as I graduate instead of waiting until my sister finishes college to see if they can pay for something for me. You know what else? If I chose to stay home, I'd have to pay for everything, rent, and some of the bills. I told them I could get loans for school. Mom said yes, but not really. That is, because they cared about me so much. And I was so stupid, they would decide if going to college was worth the money I would have to borrow. They didn't say how they'd stop me from getting loans, so I don't know. They didn't know what my marks were and never believed in my abilities. Anyway, I didn't even blink. I just said, okay, my mom didn't see that coming and kept pushing. She might have wanted me to have a temper tantrum so they could use it as a reason to never pay for my college. I told them I got their point of view and thanked them for caring. But that was all I said. After that, my dad did the same thing, but I also refused to show feeling. You see, I never had any hopes for my schooling because my parents were terrible parents my whole life. They would find a reason not to pay for mine, which would make my life awful. I didn't think they would pay it in the end if I worked and waited for my sister to finish. I had spent a long time getting ready for college. Since I didn't have many friends and couldn't go out much, I had a lot of time to study. I did study. I thought college was my only way to get away from everything. When the time came, I worked really hard and got a grant. Not to Ivy League U or to law or medical school or anywhere else. But it was a good school at a good college, and he got a full scholarship. I told my parents about my accomplishment on social media at the same time I told my sister about it, because I knew she would hate it and try to stop me. I had to force myself to thank them in the post. Now they would have to tell my family why they couldn't stop me from going. At first they were even a little proud and bragging about it. But I think my sister told them not to be so proud, and they changed their minds and even asked me if I was sure I wanted to go. Someone told me that my sister wasn't doing well in college. Since she was smarter and had better judgment than me, I would have it worse. It's clear that I stuck to my guns. They were unhappy but couldn't do anything about it. College saved my life. I began to feel good. I still talked to my parents and went to see them on vacations and other occasions, but since they wouldn't pay for anything, I could say that I wasn't going as often because of money. During this time, I didn't bring any men to their attention, and my sister quit going to college. Again, I know she didn't finish because they would have made a big deal out of it. I moved back in with my parents and stopped paying rent or bills, but they said it was different. I also started working at the same company as my mom, which was clearly possible because my mom was able to make it happen. All of this was sold to me as something to be proud of. Well, whatever. I promise we're almost there. This is when I met my husband. People who say, if I were in that situation, I would have done that. My husband is the kind of person who does. I'm the kind of person who is always nice and mild. But at night I can't sleep because I wish I had done something, said something funny, etc. When I'm mad, I can't help but cry. My husband is the type of person who claps back right away. He loves drama, and he also loves to fix it. You should start worried about him if he doesn't respond right away to a slight. He won't forgive and forget. He's just getting back at her by doing something worse. He meant for me to post here and on a board about nuclear payback. But he changed his mind because what we did wasn't nuclear. People didn't understand why I dated him, but that didn't mean I didn't like it. I probably couldn't act like him because of how I was raised. He does things I can't, and I love that about him. He also treats people well as long as they treat him well in return. Due to our limited funds, we chose not to worry too much about the ceremony when we talked about getting married. Instead, we wanted to spend our honeymoon money on a dream trip to Europe. When it came to where to do it, we chose my city, because his family was spread out and mine was still mostly together. We also didn't live too far away, so we could take long trips on the weekends to get things done. Plus, my job gave me some freedom, so we could stay in my city for a while if we had to. We told everyone we were getting married and asked them to save the date for a few months later. As you can guess, my parents then asked to meet my boyfriend. It was hard for me to come up with a reason to say no. I thought my parents might not be so bad because we lived far away. When I told my husband I would make sure they were never alone with him, he looked like I had canceled Christmas. He had been getting ready for this, you see. To keep track of everything, he even bought a good recording that he could hide in his pocket. He was excited because he could plan many ways to turn down my sister's advances, insult her, and then show my family the recording of her advances, and so he went off by himself, excited to meet them. He came back later feeling great. That's so bad that you won't believe it, babe. It's so possible that we can fuck them over so badly, babe. I was lost and wanted to listen to the recording, but he told me it would be better to hear him first, or else I wouldn't understand him. He did go there, but instead of chatting, my parents and sister sat him down. They complained about not being okay with him, my judgment, etc., and then they said they would pay for my wedding. But there was one catch. In a wedding dress, my sister would be the first person to walk down the aisle at my wedding. Their reason was that it wasn't fair for a younger sister to get married before me, so it was only fair that my sister got to see the place, the dress, and the pictures. She was also going to have cake later, etc. My husband is going to type his part now. Hey, angry husband here. Hell hath no fury like a person who wants to get payback, instant karma, or nuclear revenge when their loved one is wronged. That being said, my wife Teehee, she's my wife now, says I'm a very smart guy, but I have to admit that my brain pretty much shut down when those people seriously suggested that stuff is some kind of great gift. He thinks that even Troy would choose to take the horse in again. The bad news is that when my brain finally came back to life, I was about to insult these fucks, but something in my soul told me, straighten these fucks out. So I told them I had to think about it and see how my then fiancé, now wife, would react. I then ran away before they could find out about my evil plans. Come back to me, the wife. With a smile on his face, my husband told me honestly that my parents wanted my wedding to be about my sister instead of me. He had the recording to back it up. I was shocked. They weren't as mean to me when we were far away, and I thought they wouldn't go that far. The fact that my husband wouldn't stop talking about payback kept me from getting into a bad mood. We had a great time coming up with ridiculously impossible to do things that would get them in trouble. After making up our minds on a plan, we called his much more calm brother. It meant having 2 venue names and giving them the wrong one, among other things. Well, our sensible brother told us off for it. He admitted that he would never be able to stop us from getting even, but at least he showed us that it would be hard to do something like that. We might also have been sued over some of our other ideas. In the end, we chose the plan that would cause the least harm. Do what we agreed to do, but then pay guards and don't let her in. That alone would not make it pro-revenge, of course. The rest is mostly my husband's work, but he wants me to take the lead, so here it is. I think it's important to note that everything he did was planned and agreed upon by both of us. He told my parents that he looked into it and thought I wouldn't agree with it. He didn't see the problem, though, and didn't want the family to fall apart, so he helped them do it. He said, I don't like disagreements. I might not have a temper tantrum in front of everyone if it came as a surprise. But getting married is a big deal. Who knew if I'd lose it? So, he came up with a solution. They'd help pay for things. This would make me feel even more obligated to keep quiet, since we would be in public and our families would be there. Plus, I would be thankful for their help, which would make me feel better. He said that my parents looked shocked, as my older sister began to skip with happiness. That's right, like a child. That's why it was okay. Important. My husband also said that these words came from me because of bad boyfriends in the past and that I'm so happy of using their words against them. I was suspicious and bossy, and I liked to look at his phone and other things to make sure he wasn't cheating on me. Because of this, it was very important that this plan never got written down. He would go over to their house to talk about anything that had to do with my sister walking down the aisle before me. The months of lying began. My parents and sister thought they were fooling me, while my husband and I were taking advantage of them. How? Of course, my parents wanted a say in everything since they didn't want to pay for the wedding and then stay out of it. My husband would talk them out of things that were important to me, like the songs and color scheme, to keep me in line. They thought that, since we didn't care about the event in the first place, anything else was fair game. This is what we did. We'd go, say, to look at the drinks and food. Our next choice would be the cheapest or second cheapest one. After that, my husband would sneak my sister there to try it out too. Then sigh and say, "It's too bad we don't want to take advantage of my parents' kindness to get the best choices." My sister then told my parents they had to pay for the best. Then they would tell me not to worry and pay for the most expensive one. I did the same thing with the camera. Plants. My husband gave my sister a bunch of the flowers we wanted, and then told her I wanted some other, less nice flowers. There they were, telling me they wanted us to go with those flowers and would pay for it. Dress for the wedding. We made a small mistake here. My parents told me to wear a really bad dress. Nice enough, but not really ugly. It wasn't my style and wouldn't look good on me. It was our plan to say yes and then not use it. But my mum told me about it in a text. That way you'd know I said yes. We had no choice but to go with my text message refusal and stand my ground. He said he'd see what he could do and went over there. My sister told me to ruin the dress I wanted to wear so I would have to use the other one. He seemed to agree. All this time, they didn't really use text to talk to each other. We made sure it happened by having me respond to this when my sister tried to text my husband. When my husband said, "I'm controlling and neurotic." This proved it, so they believed him and never put anything in writing. Some people might also not like the idea of their partner talking badly about them to their family. I told him to do it, but I'm such a doormat that the idea of painting me as this dominating and dangerous BTC makes me laugh out loud. I guess my sense of humor is all over the place, LOL. Also, my sister did try to flirt with him, but he seemed torn. To really make it look like he was with them, my husband would also act like he was telling them things I didn't know. Yet he never told them we hired guards. It was really amusing. My husband and I had really thought about getting married in a courthouse so that we could save money for our honeymoon. Instead, we had this huge, expensive wedding and barely spent any money on it. We called it back to make up for the mental harm my parents caused, LOL. Okay, he just confirmed what I thought, LOLL. I think my husband liked tricking them more than planning our wedding, LOLL. I didn't think it was possible to see a guy smiling at the thought of spending all day Saturday in the car with his in-laws talking about wedding plans, but here we are. The day soon came. Plan B was to wait until everyone was sitting down. It was made by the husband of my parents' sister. They would have my sister arrive at that exact time so that I wouldn't see her and try to stop it, since the bride always comes out late. She would then walk down the aisle. It was too late to do anything when I heard what had happened. We saved some of the fabric that was left over after making changes to my dress, and my husband took it to my parents' house. Their sister still lives with them, and she showed them proof that he ruined the dress. Then he told me he had to go back to me, because I was angry and he had to cool me down. He said he'd see them at the wedding. At first, we made sure to hide our real protection. When my parents and friends got there, all they could see was a woman checking off names on a list. The guy who looked like a bodyguard wasn't brought out until after my parents had arrived and sat down. We told him not to let anyone in except my sister, and we were even willing to give him a big tip if he didn't tell anyone. Soon enough, the time came. After getting a text message that my sister was almost there, my dad went and told everyone to get going. Before the wedding, I told my girls to follow his lead, so they did it without asking me first. As soon as they were all seated, my dad stood at the door, as if he were waiting for me. A friend who wasn't in the wedding party texted me to get ready. Since my husband, girls, or other people might be seen texting if they pull out their phones, this is what I asked. This friend knew about the plan. She's friends with my husband and is just as happy to cause trouble as he is. She didn't care about being a girl or anything. As soon as my dad took his place, the wedding song began to play. The doors opened, and I walked in. My dad was shocked that I was there. He looked behind me, but from where we were, he couldn't see what happened to my sister because he couldn't see the door to the venue. The phone then rang. It was her on the caller ID. He just left me there and said, "Something came up." Everyone gasped and looked around in shock. The friend who was there loudly asked what was going on. I lied and said, through tears, that he told me I wasn't supposed to be there. He decided that if he dared to leave me, I should say that to make him look the worst. So that's not what he said. As for the tears, I wish I could say it was just how well I acted, but it wasn't. Even with everything, I didn't really believe he would leave me there. The sister thing wasn't true, it was all a big joke. I'm not sure. I was hurt, and I still am, so I really wanted to hold back tears. The friend then asked in a loud voice, "What did he mean by it shouldn't be you?" So that as many people as possible could hear it and spread the word, he said, "I'll go check," and he ran off. We chose to do this so she would make things hell with the security and my dad wouldn't be able to come back and stop the wedding or something. My mom also left at some point. The dad of my husband quickly came over and grabbed my arm. He had been told that he might have to. It made me smile to see him run so hard to get to me. As I walked down the aisle, people talked about what had happened in whispers. It looks like some also left to check. But when I got to my husband, everything was fine. He made me laugh, which made me feel better. I should have won an Oscar for how real my sad face looked. Don't stress out. He would beat them up for what they did, lol. There were no problems with our wedding. The kids didn't come back. But no one was brave enough to tell me what was going on. I did notice that a lot of people were leaving and coming back during the party. Someone did come up to my husband and talk in his ear, and he left. After a while, he came back with a threatening look on his face, but he told me in a whisper that he needed to go hide somewhere before he broke character and started laughing, lol. The good news is that it worked. The story I got later from friends, family, the security guard, and my husband is shown below. My sister did show up in a wedding dress. The guards wouldn't let her in. As agreed, he told her she had to be in the wrong place because there was already a bride there. Yes, we did leave him a big tip as promised. My dad went there and tried to make him fear the cops by saying he had never heard of him and that he couldn't be working there. The guard agreed with the cops because he was doing his job for us. It was too late by then, so. My dad tried to make him let my sister in. The friend then came over, yelled at my sister, called her names, and asked what was going on. Mostly just stopping. Soon, my mom and other people showed up. The wedding plan was now over. Now that everyone knew about it, my parents could only try to fix the harm. People were shocked that they would try to pull it off, and were screaming and yelling at them. The three of them said it wasn't a secret, so they lied about my husband. At this point, someone called my husband. When he got there, he put on his best confused face. And denied. He said things like gatekeeper, girl boss, and gaslight. He said he had never agreed to something so silly. When they said he did, he asked for proof, but they couldn't give it to him. The only text messages they could find were about normal wedding choices. I saw my sister screaming and crying while she sat on the floor and kicked her legs like a child. It looked like my dad was going to hit my husband, but police and other people stopped him. They said they didn't have proof because my husband told them not to text. Wow, how convenient, huh? My husband laughed and asked again. Why would he ever agree to something so fucked up? He yelled at them for being bad parents and said he wasn't going to let their stupid plans or lies get in the way of his wedding. He then turned back to me. People didn't believe them. Video cameras were set up at the place, but they wouldn't show me the recording because it was for security reasons. But some people took videos of some of it. It was so much fun to see my parents and sister fight in front of everyone who came to watch the theater. For years they were accused of things and no one believed them. Seeing them enjoy a taste was one of the best wedding presents. My sister was still screaming and crying on the floor, and my mom was crying. My dad kept turning from purple to white. They wouldn't stop saying that my husband was involved. However, many people asked me why my husband would agree. What was the point of not having proof? Why did they want my sister to act this way at my wedding? They didn't know how to answer any of them well. They finally got the order to leave and had no choice but to do so. It looks like my dad had to drag my sister up because she wouldn't get up. Once more, no one spoke to me all night. I guess they didn't want to hurt me. It seemed like everyone was going out of their way to be nice, happy, and excited about everything. It could have been because I was the bride and not just a guest. My husband says that the expensive crap they were eating and drinking really helps. LOL. We had a great time. My husband could only keep up the fake angry face for a short time before he started to smile again. We went to the hotel to get some rest before our honeymoon. By the way, my parents tried to pay for our plane tickets. But we said no because we thought it was risky, because they might try to cancel them. Of course, since then, all three have tried to get in touch with me, but my husband insisted on keeping records, so I've turned down their calls. I was smart, because my sister did message me in the end. I'm not going to say it again because it was crazy and didn't make sense. And the most important thing was that she blamed me for making her look bad. She called my husband a two-faced snake that lied to them for months. He wants to print that out and hang it on our wall, LOL. He also hoped and knew for sure that he would cheat on me. She also said that she thought he was cheating on me with her. My husband stole my phone, took screenshots of the call logs, my sister's message, and some messages from my parents telling me to pick up the phone. He then sent all of this to our family group chat, and I sent him copies of messages where they called him names and threatened him. But he kept saying, "You're crazy, I didn't agree to anything," and I even told them I would sue them for abuse and slander. In that group chat, he sent me a message pleading for help from my family because they were no longer stopping bothering me. They tried to ruin my wedding, but failed. He begged his family to help them not ruin my vacation. Then he nicely ended by asking them not to tell anyone where we were, so my parents wouldn't send my sister over and say he agreed to pretend to fuck her in our honeymoon suite. LOL. My family told him they would take care of it. In fact, there has been silence since then. My husband is a little let down because my sister didn't break the rules, so he couldn't tattle again while calling her a new jerk. We'll see how long it lasts. While I would have liked to have a regular, loving family at my wedding, I am glad that they not only didn't ruin something important to me, but I also got them back. More information. Do I understand why they treat me this way? Since this question is often asked of me, I think you all will too. Everything in my life makes me wonder about this, and I still don't know. When I was young, I asked, but they said there was no difference and told me I was being spoiled. That's why I gave up. I've thought of a lot of options, but this one seems most likely based on what I've seen. I wasn't planned. After a long wait, they were thrilled to have my sister. She was not only wanted, but also like a surprise child. I think they didn't expect to have a child so quickly or easily though, since we aren't that far apart in age. They also didn't use enough protection way too soon after my sister was born, and may not have known. My mom was pregnant until it was too late. They had to deal with a child and an unplanned baby at the same time. They also don't have much money. It's possible that the extra cost didn't help, so they didn't like me. But that's just what I think. I've come to terms with the fact that the answer won't really matter. No matter what they did to me was wrong. They must have been crazy to think this would work. We talked about it, and we think they never wanted to do this in the first place. We think my sister threw a fit because I got married before her, because she barely gets dates. They made that crazy offer to my husband because they didn't want to pay for my wedding and didn't think we'd accept it, or that it would look good for them to do it. But if they asked and were turned down, they could make my sister think they were nice while having a reason not to give me any money. But then my husband agreed, and they couldn't go back on their word because my sister might turn against them.